Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. I help people to heal from covert narcissistic abuse. I offer both group and individual healing programs. You can find that and other resources at my website at covertnarcissism.com. I am surrounded by narcissists everywhere. Is everyone a narcissist? And if they're not a narcissist, maybe they're a covert narcissist. Is every marriage affected by this? I feel like I just can't take anything at face value anymore. Right now in today's world, it can feel like we can't take anything at face value. You know, the news says one thing and social media says another. At times, it truly feels like we are surrounded by a fake world. And covert narcissism is absolutely a part of this fake world. Now, over time, all the years I've been, exploring covert narcissism, my definition of it molds and shapes and evolves. And the definition I'm working with right now, I want to share with you. The definition of covert narcissism is self-focused narcissistic traits that are covered up and hidden by learned good behavior. That's a simple definition that it's easy to understand. We got a pretty good feel of what narcissistic traits are, so I feel like I can put that in the definition. But it's covered up by this learned good behavior, and that's the piece I want to focus on because that's the piece that makes it covert. On this journey of learning about covert narcissism, you might be told that it's extremely rare, and very unlikely then that you're dealing with a narcissist. Let's just talk about the narcissist piece for a minute here. Family, friends, even your partner is going to say to you, well, narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, it's a really small percentage out there. So I don't know what the big deal is. Statistics say that, it might be an average of 1% of the world's population. Other statistics might say 1 to 3%. Now, this is just for, again, narcissistic personality disorder, not even referring to covert at this point. There's still so little known about covert narcissism. According to the Cleveland Clinic, in quotes, they say, experts are not sure how common narcissistic personality disorder is. Even the experts are not sure here. Now, they go on to say that research suggests in the U.S. that it's somewhere between, get this, 0.5% and 5%. Now, I don't know about you, but in the world of statistics, that's a huge difference. There's a massive difference between 0.5% and 5%. In the world's population, this is a difference between 1.6 million, 0.5%, and 16.6 million, 5%. That's a staggering difference. Well, this only confirms the uncertainties surrounding narcissism. Experts don't know, and covert narcissism makes it even worse. This also confirms the difficulty in diagnosing this disorder. The disorder itself gets in the way of the diagnosis. Now, I do want to add here that in order to get a diagnosis does require a trained professional. This disorder itself, like I said, gets in the way. And so even the experts are struggling with this. But the point of getting a diagnosis, that's not the point of this podcast and the point of the research that I have done on covert narcissism. There is also a difference between somebody who's got NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, and someone who is demonstrating narcissistic traits. Now, a narcissistic person will tell you that this is such a tiny percent of the population. So why are you so focused on that? You're just being influenced by social media. You just read something and you're making this up. Everybody's making it up. They want you to quit talking about it. Now, why? Because it applies to them, all right? You will even hear this from the flying monkeys and the enablers. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Only 1% of the people have this, so no way that's what's going on. So I did a little research. I wanted to dig in here a little bit and make a comparison. So I made a comparison about alcoholism. I looked it up. What's the percentage of the world that deals with alcohol? Alcohol use disorder, according to ourworldandData.org and other stats that I found, is about 1% of the world's population. 1%. And get this, the range that they quote on these statistics is the same range, 0.5% to 5% in the various cultures. But yet, alcoholism, there's organizations that exist to help people that are dealing with this. There's AA, there's rehab centers, there's Al-Anon, charities, nonprofit organizations, programs for the person who's dealing with alcohol, as well as for their family members, their adult children, their spouses. This is an issue that has gotten attention, and rightly so. These programs should exist. But what about narcissism? Programs and organizations for narcissistic abuse, they should exist as well. This issue should also be getting attention. Now let's go back to that statistic. About 1% of the population is alcoholic. How many people do you know that have said they deal with an alcoholic in their family? That their parent was an alcoholic, their friend, their sibling, their adult child? How many? I think every single one of us has been affected by alcoholism somewhere in our family unit or in our friend group or in our coworkers. Now let's take that a step further. How many alcoholics go undiagnosed? People don't get help for something that they don't see as a problem. We know this about alcohol. That's why people have, interventions. But this is also true about narcissism. People don't get help for something they don't see as a problem. Now let's go back to that concept of covert narcissism. I have often wondered to myself, did I just read something or hear a video or a podcast and just make it be true in my world? Did I just bring this into my world myself? It's such a hard thing to grasp. I talk about it as though you're trying to catch a ghost here. It's so hard to kind of get your head around what's going on that you start to wonder, did I just make it up? Look, when you read or hear words that you already know are true in your heart, there is an instant awareness. There is an instant feeling of validation. And in this connection that it makes inside of you, it is incredibly powerful. When you finally put words to something that your heart already knew to be true, it's overwhelming. So did I make this be true in my own world? Absolutely not. It already was true. It already existed. I just finally found the words for it. There is nothing like that feeling of reading something you already knew, but you never heard it expressed before. You never knew how to put it into words, and you finally get it. Now let's go back to that definition of covert narcissism. It's narcissistic traits hidden behind learned good behavior. I want to focus for a minute on that learned good behavior. People learn that narcissistic traits are not liked by others. They're not socially acceptable. They don't get, what they want from others, which is for people to like them or want to be around them or to trust them. They don't get that from the narcissistic traits. So they have to learn good behavior. They learn more acceptable behavior. But on the inside, they're still carrying the narcissistic traits. Now, I want to pause here and talk for just a minute about the stages of moral development. These are described by Lawrence Kohlberg. And if you've never looked into this, it's well worth the research. He puts together 6 stages of moral development. In the first stage, and this is like ages 3 through 7, this is the pre-conventional stage. The goal here in moral development is to avoid a punishment and to gain reward. So you have avoiding punishment. If action leads to punishment, it must be bad. This is how children decide what bad behavior is. Self-interest. If action leads to reward, it must be good. Again, a very childlike approach to moral development. But if I get rewarded for this behavior, then this must be good behavior. This is like, learning to brush your teeth. And you don't brush your teeth because you recognize as a child that this is a good thing and you want your teeth when you're 60 and 70 years old to be in good shape. No, children don't do this. They brush their teeth in order to avoid punishment. Mom or dad gets mad at me, or they punish me and take away my favorite toy if I don't brush my teeth. They also are motivated by reward. If I brush my teeth every day for, 7 days, then I get ice cream at the end of the week. Yes, we bribe our kids, okay? But this is how we kind of teach them positive habits, good learned behavior. Second stage of development is conventional. This is ages 8 through 13. This is described as good boy attitude and a law and order morality. Well, let's look at those two for a minute. Good boy attitude. This is validation from others that determines if our behavior is good or bad. Now, it's not a reward and punishment. It's kind of gone a step further now. And now we are being acknowledged by other people that our behavior is good. So that by things like they want to be around us, they like us, they comment on our social media stuff, or they respond to our text. We get positive feedback in that way. So we start to determine whether our behavior is good or bad. Law and order morality is where we start to kind of really identify rules. Rules matter, and they must be followed. It's a very black and white stage of thinking. These rules mean that I need to behave this way, and that way. And the rules then apply to everyone. It gets a little convoluted here because with narcissists and their black and white thinking, they absolutely will enforce the rules, but the rules start to get modified. They can modify them at any point in time to better serve themselves. Now, stage 3 is adulthood, post-conventional. This is known as social contract and universal principles. Social contract, this is reciprocation, giving grace, forgiveness and reconciliation. It's mutual. Other people matter. Okay, narcissistic people never get there. Universal principles, these apply to everyone, mutual respect, and everyone matters. Again, narcissistic people never get there. In a recent Facebook post, I asked, what emotional age is the covert narcissist in your life? What is their emotional age? And for most, it was between the ages of 8 and 13. A lot of people said around ages 10 and 12 is where it's like they got stuck there. I've had so many people tell me it's like I'm raising a third child when they only have 2 children. This is because emotionally, those narcissistic people got trapped in their emotional development. Well, this lines up with the characteristics of covert narcissism. That good boy attitude, I got asked so many times, am I in trouble? Like he was a child coming to me going, did I do good? He would tell me, I need you to tell me when I'm doing something bad or when I'm doing something good. It's an inability to determine for themselves what is right or wrong. It's a constant reliance on outward validation. And it also allows them to avoid any personal responsibility. If you didn't tell me what I was doing was bad, then I'm not responsible for it. Again, they're stuck in that emotional development and never got past that ages of 8 to 13. In this concept of moral development, overt narcissists seem to stay in the earlier stage of moral development, that ages 3 to 7. They're avoiding punishment and self-serving, their interests, the reward and the punishment system. But covert narcissists, it's like they made it past that. And their moral development instead got stuck in those ages 8 to 13. They are now more concerned with what others think of them. So they learn more socially acceptable behavior. In other words, they learn to be better. A checklist of their supposed to be, they're supposed to behaviors. Look at, I'm supposed to look at people when they talk to me. I'm supposed to ask about them and how was their day. I'm supposed to help carry the heavy packages or take out the trash, hold the door for others. This is purposeful, learned behavior, but it never makes it past that. This is why it doesn't feel genuine. This is why their other behaviors don't back up this, what seems to be acceptably good behavior. They learn I'm supposed to be modest. Even though I don't feel that way, I'm supposed to be. I know that I'm better than others, but no, I'm supposed to be modest. So they learn what modest looks like. They learn the right words to say. Oh, anyone could have done that. I was just lucky. Enough about me. What's going on with you? And as soon as you start to answer that, they move on because there's no meaning behind their words. What's going on with you? And you start to talk. And the next thing you know, it's flipped right back to them. This is learned behavior of what they're supposed to say, but it's not backed up by their actions. They learn that they should share with others, even though, they want all the attention, time, and money and power. They learn that they should express their happiness for others, even though they want all the admiration for themselves. These learned behaviors are not heartfelt when you're dealing with a covert narcissist. They do not make that transition from stage 2 to stage 3. That stage 3 is where the reciprocation, the reconciliation, the mutual respect, the mutual validation and importance, that's where that exists. Now, I get asked repeatedly, can they get better? And I want to speak to this for just a minute. Think about this learned behavior that I am describing. This has been going on for their entire life. They got stuck in this in childhood, and this just continued. This is why they behave so differently in public and in private. In public, they do the supposed to behave, and in private, they don't have to pretend anymore. Can they go to therapy and learn more good behaviors? Yes, they can. They learn more behaviors of how they're supposed to be. They add to their checklist, but it does not change how they feel on the inside. So what does therapy do? In essence, they become more covert. This is why so many people come to me and say they went to therapy and things got worse. Another way to think about it is when they feel like they're about to lose you, they go back to treating you like the public around them. That supposed to behavior, the learned good behaviors that you weren't getting behind closed doors, but now you are, they just went back to treating you like the public around them. This will last for a while. They can put some effort in, but it's not sustainable. It leaves you wondering, do they finally get it now? Maybe they've changed. So it actually creates more of that yo-yo effect, more of the confusion and self-doubt. Does it feel real? No. In fact, it often feels icky. They are pretending to be somebody that they are not. And that narcissistic beast is still there. It's still going to come out, and it's just a matter of time. So going to therapy, what's the result? Is they just become more covert. So is covert narcissism on the rise? Or are we just more aware of it now? I'm going to be exploring this further in these next few episodes. It's like discovering the color red, and now everything I see is red. The red always existed, but now you've just learned more about it. This doesn't mean the red wasn't there before. Now you just have the recognition. I want you to spend this week looking at their learned good behavior. Make note of it. Pay attention to it. Think about your past with them and the learned behaviors that are there. Think about how some of those behaviors got better, even learned more, got better at showing you their good behavior. Next week, I'm going to explore where all this covert narcissism is coming from and why it seems to be on the rise. I can't wait to join you there. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast. If you are struggling with covert narcissism in your life, I help people to heal from covert narcissistic abuse. If you are struggling with the isolation, the self-doubt, and the obsessive thinking, then this is the program for you. I offer both group and individual options. This is live, personalized coaching that is specific to covert narcissism. Reach out to me anytime. You can find me at my website, covertnarcissism.com. I'm not a therapist and you are not a victim. I am a coach and you are a survivor. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson and the Covert Narcissism podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. It does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.